Medical Society president. We're going to have a discussion on smoke-free initiative form. It's going to be kind of lively, I think. To me, it's a question of civil liberties and it challenges public health. I know there'll be some lively debate here, and I'm excited to hear some of it. I'd like to first introduce Hal Higdon, president of Ozark Technical Community College.
There you go.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to have you here at our college. One reason we're glad you picked tonight is we're closed for spring break, so there's plenty of parking. Any other time, we probably would have had to clear some parking out for you. But we're always glad to see democracy in action. There's no better way to see democracy in action than see something like this where you have two opposing sides who feel very passionately about what they're talking about. But the one thing I do know is that everything will be civil. These are good folks up here. They're going to make sure that they're saying and doing the right thing. And we're glad you're here. You're always welcome at OTC. And if you're coming back when we're not in spring break, call ahead so we can save you a parking space. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Higdon. Next, I'd like to introduce the two people who are going to be really running it for us. The forum MC is Cindy Stevens. She's president of the League of Women Voters. And next is our moderator for panel discussion, and it's Dr. Robert Spence. He's the president of Evangel University.
Thank you all so much for coming. In addition to our appreciation at OTC for providing a room at no cost for us in these tough economic times, appreciate the Greene County Medical Society for putting this together, and most importantly, we appreciate the panelists. Before we start, the speakers tonight have prepared very carefully, and they are going to be sharing what they believe is important for you to know. Cards and pencils are going to be distributed tonight, so in case there are things that you would like to know but you have not yet heard addressed, we can make sure that those are addressed. The bottom line is we only have an hour for the question and answer portion. So we're trying really hard not to ask the same question twice. So please ask yourself which issues are most important to you. Pay attention to how the teams are answering those questions. Are they talking about your priority concerns? And if they are not, please write down the question so that we can answer that later in the forum. If I would, let's see, where are my Confederates? There we go in the back. If you would get those note cards and pencils, go ahead and distribute those. Please write legibly. If the runner has a question on what the word is, they're going to hand it back to you with it circled, so please write legibly. Both teams are going to be answering questions. They are only allotted a total of 6 minutes. 3 per team, which means we only have time for about 10 questions. At this time, if you would please silence your cell phones and pagers. You have your handout which shows the agenda. The ballot language is on the back. Since it is not easy to stand or sit in front of a group of people, whether you know them or not, we would ask that you would smile nicely during their presentations. But we would like to hear from them. Please hold your applause, as well as any boos or hissing, until after we're all done and we can applaud at that time. So, Dr. Spence, if you would please take this fishbowl to Dr. Higdon and have him pull out one name. We put the name of each of the panelists. The name that has been selected is Mr. Rushton. So Mr. Rushton, your team, do you wish them to have the first word or the last word?
The last word.
The last word. This will make, let's see, Mr. Rushton, are you, so you would be team B. Are you a public health speaker or a business speaker?
Neither.
You are neither. Who is your public health speaker?
Dr. Dave Redford.
Redfern. And who is your business speaker?
Mr. Tim O'Reilly.
All right, and Team A, who is your public health speaker? And your business speaker. At this time, I would like to introduce from left to right, Mr. Nick Ibarra, Dave Myers, Jessica Hudson, Dr. Lilly, someone with a very nice tie I can't see from here, that would be Dr. Redford, Dr. Franklin, Mr. O'Reilly, and Mr. Rushton. All right, at this time, Public Health Speaker A, Dr. Lilly, 5 minutes. Timer is on the front row.
We would like to thank the Greene County Medical Society and Ozarks Technical Community College for sponsoring and hosting this evening's debate. We have known since the 1960s that cigarette smoking causes cancer and contributes to numerous diseases. As a non-smoker and a physician, I always counsel my patients to quit smoking. This evening, Dr. Redford will present numerous statistics and reports that are all part of the public record. He will probably mention the Centers for Disease Control estimate of 46,000 deaths from heart disease caused by secondhand smoke. Even if this figure is correct, what do we legislate to prevent 42,000 motor vehicle deaths or 25,000 deaths from influenza each year? Do we ban all sick individuals from public places because they might spread disease? Actually, this law is not about statistics or reports. It's not about an individual's health or public health. It's about freedom. If this was truly a public health issue and the proponents wanted to protect non-smokers, especially children, they would propose a total ban on the use, possession, sale of all tobacco products everywhere within the city limits of Springfield, including private residences. They did not propose a total ban. They proposed a selective ban. We are holding this debate at OTC, where in 2003 the board voted to make the entire campus smoke-free. This has been a tremendous success, and I applaud the board for their decision. But this was a choice that the OTC board was able to make. The proponents of this selective ban want to eliminate that choice for all businesses and private clubs in Springfield. Apparently, it is good enough for OTC to have the right to choose, but not everyone else. Clean Air Springfield received a $10,000 donation from the American Cancer Society to promote this selective ban. They could have gone to the American Cancer Society asking for money to talk to businesses and private clubs in Springfield about secondhand smoke and to convince them to voluntarily limit smoking, letting them have the freedom to choose, just like OTC. Instead, the proponents of the selective ban are using the American Cancer Society donation to force businesses and private clubs to ban smoking. They want to use the police power of government to force their beliefs on everyone else. Whenever government power is increased, individual freedom is diminished, and the liberties that our founding fathers gave us are lost. Mankind has historically lived under the rule of kings. The king was at the top of the pyramid. Below him was the nobility, and at the bottom of the pyramid were the serfs. Rights flowed from God to the king to the nobility and finally down to the serfs who had virtually no rights. The founding fathers of this country had a different view. The most important sentence in the Declaration of Independence is, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." The founding fathers inverted the pyramid. Rights flowed from the Creator to all individuals. Individuals then formed towns, cities, states, and ultimately at the bottom of the pyramid, a national government. The proponents of this selective ban wish to turn the pyramid back upright, where the government is at the top and the individuals are at the bottom, and the government decides what is best for all individuals. What is the definition of a right? I like Darren Chappell's definition. Rights are those areas of life wherein government has guaranteed me that it will not stop me from acting within a narrow scope of opportunity. The First Amendment covers 5 rights, specifically religion, speech, press, assembly, and petitioning the government. Rights are actually rights to an action that we perform, not something that we get. Rights do not impose obligations on other individuals. The proponents of the law also talk about rights. They indeed do have rights. They have the right to stand up and walk away from any situation they find disagreeable. They do not have the right to impose their will on others. This law is not about an individual's health or public health. It's about limiting liberty and freedom. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lilly. Dr. Redford.
It's always great to be on campus of OTC. I'm very happy that we have this opportunity. Dr. Dickon, I know that I've told you this before. It's a beautiful campus. We're very privileged to be able to be here tonight. I'd also like to thank the Greene County Medical Society for putting together this forum. If you don't know me, my name is Dr. David Redford. I'm an OBGYN physician in Springfield, where I've had the privilege to practice for the past 22 years. I'm in strong support of the proposed smoke-free ordinance for many health-related reasons. The overwhelming majority of professional medical organizations support such smoke-free legislation and include the American Heart Association, the American Lung Association, the American Cancer Society, the American Medical Association, and the Centers for Disease Control. Secondhand smoke is a proven health hazard, not just a nuisance. Non-smokers get the same diseases that smokers get when exposed to secondhand smoke. Secondhand smoke contains toxic, cancer-causing chemicals, including formaldehyde, benzene, and arsenic, to name a few. Secondhand smoke has been designated a known human carcinogen by the United States EPA, as well as the International Agency on Research on Cancer. There is no risk-free level of exposure to secondhand smoke. There is no risk-free level of exposure to secondhand smoke. Secondhand smoke causes immediate adverse effects on the cardiovascular system and can cause coronary artery disease or heart attacks. In the United States, an estimated 40,000 premature deaths from heart disease occur annually in non-smokers due to exposure to secondhand smoke. Even brief exposure to secondhand smoke can initiate damage to blood vessels that increase platelet adhesiveness, which is associated with heart attacks. Patients who have other risk factors are even more sensitive to this damaging effect or even brief secondhand smoke exposure. Non-smokers who are exposed to secondhand smoke at home or at work increase their risk of ischemic heart disease by 25 to 30%. Secondhand smoke causes lung cancer in adult non-smokers. Some 3,400 lung cancer deaths in the United States occur annually among non-smokers that are the result of such exposure. Secondhand smoke has some 70 cancer-causing chemicals. Secondhand smoke causes chronic adult lung problems such as COPD that require supplemental oxygen just to breathe. Secondhand smoke increases the risk of sudden infant death syndrome, or SIDS. SIDS is the sudden, unexplained, and unexpected death of an infant in the first year of life. Both babies whose mothers smoke while pregnant or who are exposed after birth are more likely to die from SIDS than babies who are not exposed to cigarette smoke. Infants who die from SIDS have higher concentrations of nicotine in their lungs and higher concentrations of cotinine than infants who die from other causes. Secondhand smoke is associated with low birth weight babies and premature delivery. The average cost per day in the neonatal intensive care unit at either Cox or St. John's for premature babies can approximate $5,000 a day. Some premature babies will have health care costs of $250,000 before they leave the hospital. Secondhand smoke is responsible for serious health problems in children. Children whose parents smoke or are exposed to secondhand smoke get sick more often. Irritants in secondhand smoke are responsible for triggering asthma, as well as symptoms of asthma, such as wheezing or coughing. Children who are exposed to secondhand smoke are more likely to get pneumonia, bronchitis, and inner ear infections, more so than children who are not exposed. ASHRAE, which is a preeminent professional organization of heating and cooling engineers, states that there is no ventilation system capable of removing the harmful, deadly effects of secondhand smoke. The medical evidence is clear on the issue of adverse health consequences of secondhand smoke. While a handful of physicians have not shared in this public health advocacy, they are but a small minority. In summary, I would urge you to vote yes on the smoke-free ordinance on April the 5th. I urge you to consider the serious problems caused by secondhand smoke on Springfieldians of all ages and all walks of life. I urge you to consider not only the elimination of secondhand smoke, will eliminate the risks, as no ventilation system is available to prevent the ill effects of secondhand smoke.
Thank you, Dr. Redfern. Now, 1 minute rebuttal by Dr. Lilly.
I would simply ask you to question all statistics. A lot of the information that comes here tonight is from the EPA, some from the California EPA. If you believe the California EPA is an objective source, fine. I don't think it's an objective source. I just ask you to question everything that is set up here and look at it yourself.
Thank you. 1 minute rebuttal by Dr. Redfern.
I like John's definition of right, in that, and I'm paraphrasing, it does not promote an obligation on others. And I would submit to you that secondhand smoke is an obligation that non-smokers do not want. The right of smokers to smoke, we would recognize that, but we do not recognize the rights of people to be forced to breathe air that is polluted by such secondhand smoke.
Thank you. Now we'll focus on the business side of this initiative. Our first speaker, Mr. O'Reilly.
I'd like to thank panel members here for sharing their opinions and their thoughts on these issues. I'd like to thank the Green County Medical Society for putting this together, giving us an opportunity to have a debate on this issue. There are definitely different opinions and different thoughts. It's a very contentious issue, as it has been in every state and every city, every county that's looked at these ordinances. My name is Tim O'Reilly. I'm an attorney here in town. I've been practicing law for 17 years. I also own Houlihan's Restaurant and Bar and Doubletree Hotel and Hilton Garden Inn Hotel. We are smoke-free in our facilities. We've made that conscious choice to try to protect the health and welfare of our guests and our workers, our employees and our managers. And we believe that's important as an organization at O'Reilly Hospitality. And we think that this ordinance is something that will promote the health and welfare of workers in our community. My reason for supporting this ordinance is very simple. The workers in this community, the people of this community, the workers in our company, and the managers in our company don't always have an economic alternative. The argument's been made on many occasions, in many parts of these forums and many discussions, that people can simply choose not to work at a smoke-filled facility, that people can simply go to other places where there's not smoke in the facility. Knowing the managers in the restaurant business, knowing many managers in the industry, that's just not the case. There is sometimes an economic necessity that is associated with having a job in certain industries. The restaurant industry is nothing different. There's a specialty in the restaurant industry. People know restaurants. They know cooking. They know serving. They know how to treat people in restaurants and perform services. And because they know these things and because they have expertise, without a ban of smoking indoors at these restaurants, many people will be subject to illness and potential death from secondhand smoke. And listening to our medical experts, to me it seems very simple, very clear, that there are enormous facts on the side that secondhand smoke causes illness and death. It doesn't seem like there's any dispute. Dr. Lilly asked that you question the statistics. Dr. Redfern and the other doctors that I have spoken with, they share the statistics, and I think they're irrefutable. And so if we can agree on that secondhand smoke is bad and secondhand smoke is something that we need to protect our workers against, our children that come into smoking environments and restaurants, then there's only a number of things we can do about it. The ordinance on the books right now does not protect workers and children. We've all been to restaurants, we've seen children be exposed to secondhand smoke. We've all been in restaurants and we've seen children, managers and restaurant workers and servers and cooks be exposed to secondhand smoke. Again, it's not a choice for a lot of these folks. I have people come up to me, sometimes in our company, single moms that have children at home, and say, thank you for this being a smoke-free atmosphere. Now, unfortunately, these same workers that come to a smoke-free atmosphere at our business, they go elsewhere and they're exposed to secondhand smoke. And so we pay the price for those, their attendance at other areas. The important thing to me, I don't believe this is a big infringement on personal rights. I think personal rights, I'm a big civil rights person. I think the rights are inalienable rights that Dr. Lilly mentioned. And being a lawyer for 17 years, I've passionately defended those rights on multiple occasions. But whenever something like secondhand smoke causes illness and potential death to people, it's not right. It's not a thing we can stand for as a community. And it's something that we need to rise above. There's no negative effects to the economy in any state or local entity or city that has passed these ordinances. There's only been positive effects. The exemptions that people will speak of here today, I can tell you, I've looked into these cases. These exemptions make the ordinance challengeable in federal and state court. So if we have an ordinance.
Thank you,
with
Mr.
exemptions,
O'Reilly.
it-
Ms. Hudson, if you would begin, please.
First, thank you to the Green County Medical Society and the DC Society Forum for us to discuss this issue. I'd like to address the fallacy that local businesses will be either unaffected or aided by the proposed expansion of our current smoking ban. In recent conversations with local business owners, I've seen the way in which many of them will suffer or close if this ban passes. We currently have a smoking ban in Springfield that has been successfully on our books for almost a decade. The current ban has only 72 individual exemptions for local businesses. Any new business in Springfield needs to meet the current ban's criteria and apply for an exemption. This allows each new business to decide for themselves whether or not smoking should be allowed. WF Cody's is a local institution with amazing burgers. They have a large sign before you walk in stating that you have to be 21 to enter and that they are a smoking establishment. Cody's has made a specialty out of a niche market of smokers that like to smoke while they eat. According to Beth, who owns WF Cody's South, over 80% of their customers not only smoke, but would likely not go to Cody's if they could not smoke there. The Albatross is a hookah lounge downtown. The Slaters have transformed a long vacant building into a beautiful place where local hookah smokers can rent hookahs while they socialize. Although the Albatross sells other tobacco items, the bulk of their business is rentals for in-store smoking. This law would put them immediately out of business. Bowling alleys are a common concern as I talk to people about this ban. Not only does Springfield already have one fully smoke-free bowling alley, but every other bowling alley in Springfield already bans cigars and has certain hours that they ban smoking altogether. Already, it's effectively easy for families or anyone concerned about smoke to bowl in Springfield at a smoke-free time. The Sertoma Club hosts bingo games that raise thousands of dollars for charities each year. They've spent large amounts of money on making their building completely accessible to both smokers and non-smokers with completely walled-off areas. The expansion of our current smoking ban will not affect the non-smokers in bingo, but it will significantly affect the revenue generated on the smoking side of the building. As a business owner, if you choose to be a smoking or a non-smoking establishment, you need to accept there are customers that won't enter your business. It's up to each business to decide where their interests and profits lie. As a customer, you have a choice to walk up to a smoking establishment and turn right around if it's not to your liking. Your money can be a powerful incentive if you want to convince a company to go non-smoking. As an employee, almost every job involves an element of risk. In choosing your job, you need to weigh your own risks and rewards before applying for or accepting any position. As a voter, you now have the power to make sure that we keep at least one of our freedoms intact, the freedom to decide how to run our own businesses. Your vote can help keep local businesses open and local employees from suffering the same layoffs that other industries have seen. Your vote can leave the freedom of choice in the hands of our veterans, who will otherwise be told that they cannot allow smoking in their own private clubs. Capitalism should be self-policing. If the market exists for more non-smoking businesses, more of them will step up to fill the void. Houlihan's is the most recent example of this in action. I applaud Houlihan's for seeing a need for a smoke-free restaurant and filling it. I ask that every business owner be allowed the same freedom to choose what their business should do. I'd also like to take this chance to thank Clean Air Springfield to discuss these issues openly. And now that we've come to your forum, I'd like to invite you to ours. Nick Reed has volunteered to host an honor debate March 31st at 7 a.m.
Thank you. 1 minute rebuttal by Mr. O'Reilly.
To me, the ability to succeed in business is based on flexibility. And the businesses that were mentioned, Cody's, the Hookah Lounge, bowling alleys, and the Sertoma Club, all, it's been proven they can be flexible, they can remain viable entities. The only thing that they have to do is change that people smoke indoors. People can still smoke outdoor, they can still smoke outside as much as they want, so no one's trying to take that right away. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is still alive and well in Springfield, Missouri, and will be alive and well if this ordinance passes. But when a person's actions, again, if they present the risk of death or disease to other people that don't have the economic ability to choose where they work or where they don't work, then this ordinance needs to pass. It needs to be a part of this community.
Thank you. 1 minute rebuttal, Ms. Hudson.
The restaurant industry, I come from a family with many people in the restaurant industry. I worked in the restaurant industry for years, and it's something that I think keeps coming up. I worked there by choice. I looked at my options before I graduated college, and the restaurant industry was my best choice. I took the risk. I took the risk of secondhand smoke. I took the risk of the drunks that happened to be customers. I took the risk of dealing with children running around and I'm walking up with glasses and dangerous items that can spill. And I took it because the reward, the price, my paycheck was worth it at the time. And I firmly believe that was a choice I made and a choice that others should be able to make.
Excellent. Thank you for your time. At this point, we will open our meeting to the question and answer format. We hope that the segment you just heard has identified some questions for you. Dr. Spence is going to be reading a list of questions that were submitted earlier by each of the team members. We're going to utilize those questions while we pick up yours and get them ready for the fishbowl. The starting order will again be determined by random drawing and alternate with each question thereafter. The panel discussion will continue for 1 hour or until all questions are answered. Dr. Higdon, if you would again. Mr. Ibarra, do you wish your team to answer first or defer? Dr. Spence, it's all yours, and the first question will go to the team on the far side of the room.
So that you understand the procedure, the team to your right will have the first response to this question. The team will decide who among them will be answering the question. They will have 3 minutes. Following that, the other team will have 3 minutes. Okay? First question. To what extent should restaurants and other public venues be covered under public health law instead of occupational health and safety law? So if you would decide among yourselves, who will give that response?
Can you read the question again?
Yes. To what extent should restaurants and other public venues be covered under public health law instead of occupational health and safety law?
A lot has been said about liberty and rights. I think the rights of smokers stop when secondhand smoke infringes on the health rights of others. think the question that you asked can best be answered by what's the value of life. We've seen numerous statistics where the ill effects of secondhand smoke leads to premature death in adults and children. And I think that, if you look at that, that should trump the right of a restaurateur to have a establishment that allows smoking and the ill effects on all of its customers. If you look at data from looking at the issue of who smokes and who doesn't smoke, it's about 3/4 don't smoke and about 25% that do. I think that the risk to human life would certainly trump under the circumstances that you asked about.
And I think the other point would be that the answer for restaurants and other businesses is that occupational law and public health law applies to every business. And that's what OSHA is, and public health law certainly has an application. So I don't think it's an either or answer. I think it's not both.
Does that conclude the answer from this team? All right. Your team has 3 minutes. Decide who is going to respond.
I think that OSHA already has the standards in place for what air quality should be. As we walked through a number of different businesses this week, there were places that my husband and I couldn't barely breathe in that had nothing to do with smoking. There were places that had different chemicals. You walk into a nail parlor, you walk into a printer's office, and our question really is, if air quality is an issue and OSHA is involved in air quality, then that's what we should look at. This isn't, I'd say it's a slightly misleading question because it's not about restaurants. This ban is not looking at restaurants. This ban is looking at every business in Springfield. And so to say that public health should be able to come in and tell a restaurant what to do doesn't really address what we're talking about here. We're talking about business as a whole, not a restaurant ban, not a smoking ban in bars, but every business in Springfield.
Okay. To me, where the line is drawn should be where the individual has the basic understanding of what's going on now. We're talking about health inspections, we're talking about food sanitation, dish sanitation, basic sanitation in a restaurant, for instance. When we're talking about OSHA, we're talking about building codes, fire codes, et cetera, things like that. Where, to me, that line is drawn is at the point that people can see for themselves, whether it's smoking, whether it's some other health hazard that's there. And when we're talking about health concerns, should we stop past New York City where they ban salt shakers being on public restaurant tables? Should we go as far as a South Central Los Angeles City Councilwoman tried to and say that she wanted to limit the amount of fast food restaurants because there were people that were obese in majority in her community? When does it stop? It stops when the individual has the ability to make the choice and know better.
Really what we're looking at is, as Nick said, it's an individual being an individual, making decisions for themselves and operating their lives as they see fit within the law. Smoking is not illegal. This is not about smoking to us. It's not. Smoking is not illegal. The business's right to choose what they wish to do should be their right to choose what they wish to do within the law. An individual has heart disease or high blood pressure, they take that risk of stepping into a smoking establishment or using salt in their food, as Nick said in New York City restaurants. They take the risk of eating Happy Meals at McDonald's, where in California, they ban the use of toys in those Happy Meals to detract the pull to kids.
Second question. Now, does your team go first on this one? Okay. Decide among yourselves who will respond to this. Several exemptions are included in the proposed ordinance, and several exemptions were not included. Please discuss your views on the merits of what is and is not exempted in the ballot initiative.
I think that the merit of what's in the ballot initiative is what's not in the ballot initiative, and that's what's exempted. When we talk about, as I believe Mr. O'Reilly and the doctor, and I apologize, but the doctor who gave his opening statement said, gave a litany of issues that children face when they are exposed to secondhand smoke. If that's the case, and if one could argue that the most danger that is posed to a child is in the home or the car of the smoking parent, why are we exempting this? Why are we exempting this? If, in fact, that we're concerned about employees, then why are we exempting 25% of the hotel industry? Are those employees any less important? Is that person who's making a bed or cleaning a toilet or vacuuming the hallway on that smoking floor any less important as an employee? Or is that their exemption to make sure that this can stand up in court at the cost of necessary casualties, or that this can pass on April 5th at the cost of necessary casualties?
I'm not entirely sure what constitutes, I'm not sure how you said it, but several exemptions, is that how the question was put?
The question was, several exemptions are included in the proposed ordinance. Several exemptions were not.
I'm not exactly sure what several exemptions means, but as far as we have found in this ordinance, in this proposed legislation, the only two exemptions are 25% of hotel and motel rooms. Oh, that's it.
Anyone else want to comment? Other side.
A couple of things about exemptions. As I tried to say in the opening statement, I kind of ran out of time, but the legal issue is an important one. Exemptions are used in other places where these ordinances have passed to basically challenge the ordinance legally. Under the Equal Protection Clause of the United States Constitution, if basically the argument is if all places are not handled evenly or treated evenly, then the law can be struck down. So if we have exemptions in this ordinance, we might as well not have any ordinance at all. And that is just a legal fact. And so to say that certain people or certain businesses are going to be left in the wayside or left to the side, kicked to the curb, again, it's just not right. I think the flexibility in business, again, is key. And all of these businesses can survive. Now, specific issues in the hotel industry, I know from our hotels, Hilton Hotels Corporation requires us to keep a certain number of smoking rooms in our DoubleTree Hotel. So I assume that that exemption is to basically give some leniency. It's not that people are not important that are in hotel environments. The issue to saying that why don't we go ahead and ban people from smoking in their cars or smoking in their homes, that argument doesn't make sense to me. I mean, the people that are arguing against the ordinance are saying, why don't we go farther with the ordinance? I don't understand that one, and it's a smoking gun. Basically, this ordinance is a split between what is reasonable and not unreasonable. No one would want to infringe on somebody's right in their car or right in their home to do what they want to do on their own property. And those are private property rights, and no one wants to challenge those. What this ordinance is designed to do is to stop smoking indoors in public places where other people can be affected and can be possibly injured.
Anyone else on your team want to respond?
One of the issues with exemptions is the more exemptions you have, the more unlevel playing field that you have. With fewer exemptions, the playing field is more level. I notice that businesses have a tendency to adapt to their environment, and our businesses in Springfield are no exception. I'm sure that with their business acumen, they will be willing to find ways to reach out to the customer base and to see what they need.
Next question, and we will start with your team. This proposed initiative has been variously described as being about health, freedom, business rights. What do you think about this proposed ordinance and why? What do you think it is about and why? Your team, Reverend.
This is about the ability to breathe free, fresh, unpolluted air that's free from the ill effects of secondhand smoke. That's what this ordinance is about. A lot has been said about the rights of businesses, the rights of smokers. This to me is about the rights of an individual to breathe air that's not polluted by secondhand smoke.
Anyone else on your team want to make a comment? Okay. Mr. Barrow?
I don't think there's any question that every individual in this room, every individual in this community, and every individual in the state and country has the right to breathe clean air. I believe they have that right on public property being defined as government property, schools, libraries, city halls, etc. I do believe that people have the right to breathe clean air on their own private property, their homes, their businesses, etc. I do not believe that we can say that a business that is privately owned is public property. I do not believe that an individual consumer has the ability to go into that business and tell that business owner, that private property owner, that he needs to quit allowing smoking. And when that business owner decides not to, he should have the ability to use the police power of government to legislate what that person should or should not do on their own privately owned business.
Tim O'Reilly just stated that we are not attacking property rights. That's exactly what we're doing. We are attacking a business owner's ability to conduct their business as they see fit. I've never owned a business. I hear it's hard. I would love to own my own business someday. I don't know if I will, but I do know that because I don't know anything about running a business, I certainly don't have the ability to tell that business what they can and cannot do. Now, what I do have the ability to do, as a citizen of this country, what my rights are, is to boycott and protest. We believe that this is not about smoking. We believe that this is not about rights. We have stood by that claim since the beginning of this debate back in January. We believe that it is about a business owner's ability to choose what they wish to do with their own business. And if you talk to business owners in this city, in this area, they will tell you that their rights as business owners are being taken away because they cannot choose for themselves. Tim O'Reilly with Houlihan's chose to make his restaurant smoke-free. And just like Jessica said, we applaud that. That is absolutely what we wish would happen in this city, is that businesses would be able to choose. And he even in a radio advertisement that Houlihan's put out on KTTS, they said that they wish that all businesses would make that choice before the ban is put in place. I think that's interesting. If it's a choice, then why would we ban it? And if it's a ban, why make the choice?
Anyone else on your team want to make a comment? Next question, and we begin this one with your team. Where is the line between providing people with air free from secondhand smoke and allowing people the freedom to smoke? Where is the line between providing people air free from secondhand smoke and allowing people the freedom to smoke?
Yeah, we pretty much just answered that question. I mean, I can answer it again if we need to. I mean, the line is drawn at an individual's ability to say, I want to start smoking. An individual's ability to say, I want to go into this smoking restaurant, or I don't want to go into this smoking restaurant. The line is drawn at an individual's ability as a citizen of this country, like I said, to protest and boycott. No business owner with any sense about him or her is going to say, I'm going to choose to ignore 500 or 1,000 or even 20 customers that would come into that business and say, I'm not going to patronize your business because you allow smoking. If 20 people came in there and said that to a business owner, and that business owner ignores that, that's that business owner's detriment. Those 20 people can become 400, 1,000, 20,000 very quickly. No business owner is going to do that. And we advocate for the business owner's right. The line is drawn at a person's ability to make health decisions for themselves. Why is it my choice? Why is it my responsibility to dictate and govern the health choices of somebody else? It shouldn't be that way. Shouldn't be that way.
Okay, other team, the question is this: where is the line between providing people air free from secondhand smoke and the line allowing people the freedom to smoke?
Well, I'll answer a few thoughts on that. With regard to being a business owner, I think we all give up rights when we're in business. We all give up rights all the time. Things are legislated for the good of our society all the time. In our restaurants, the health inspections come in and they make sure that we have all of our health department guidelines implemented correctly. If those weren't enforced and those rights were not taken away from me to do whatever I want to do, then people would suffer. And that's very similar to the smoking ban. Taking away someone's right to smoke indoors, only in public places, is not a substantial infringement, in my humble opinion, on people's overall rights to do whatever they want to do. And so I think that's kind of the fundamental disagreement, is that the right here in the line that I think we're talking about is that the line is between whenever someone goes indoors and they do something like smoking that harms other people and that causes them illness and potential death. We have people in this auditorium that have suffered from secondhand smoke, and they did so because of economic necessity. They did so because they worked in places like the restaurant industry. And now they're suffering life-threatening illnesses that may lead to unfortunate consequences for them. And it's a very real issue for them. So that's the answer, again, in my humble opinion, where the rights of someone else to do something harmful to other people stops.
Any other comment from your team?
I have a quick comment.
Sure.
I think that the freedom to smoke is as much a right as the freedom for all the people to have clean air to breathe as well. So I think it's equally providing freedoms for people. It's simple to me. Freedom to smoke and the freedom to be able to breathe clean air is an equal freedom for all. We should all have those freedoms, those rights to choose.
Businesses lose certain rights to provide services frequently. A common or a problem that we have in Southwest Missouri right now has to do with the use of synthetic cannabis. It goes by the name of KK. There's currently efforts underway to restrict the sale of that. And I think that this falls under that category where sometimes you have to intervene in order to protect people from adverse health effects.
Okay. Next question, and this begins with your team. Where exactly does the Center for Disease Control get its number of 46,000 on the deaths related to secondhand smoke?
The Center for Disease Control, under the auspices of the Surgeon General, put out a report in 2006, And in that report, they clearly identified the source of this information as being an EPA report in California done in 1997. As I'm sure Dr. Lilly knows, it's difficult sometimes to obtain information from death certificates. I'm an obstetrician, sometimes birth certificates. However, there are skilled and talented epidemiologists who are able to go and look at that data and provide information relative to the relative risk of that information. Additionally, subsequent to the report in 1997, there have been other studies that have documented, for example, the Institute of Medicine has been able to document that information. The California 1997 report had a variety of different illnesses that they were able to project the numbers for, and these numbers have been subsequently stood the test of time.
Anyone else on your team want to respond? Okay. Second team, the question was, where exactly does the Center for Disease Control get its 46,000 figure on deaths related to secondhand smoke?
They indeed did get that from the California EPA study in 2005. California EPA study got that from one study in Argentina from 1991 to 1994 that had less than 1,000 people in it that looked at deaths from people that went into the hospital. They took that one study and extrapolated it out to the entire United States. That's why I say question the statistics. They completely ignored two studies that were in the EPA report in the 2006 Surgeon General's report that were cohort studies with hundreds of thousands of people that showed no statistical difference.